The immortal John Hancock here, and today I have a fun video to share with you. There are many video games that have bunnies in them. Some are common and are well known, others are not and are very uncommon. In today's video I'm going to share a little bit of both, so sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the video. From comic book to cartoon series to video games, Bucky O'Hare is an arcade game that I never played back in the day. If you did experience it back in the day, consider yourself lucky, as it's fairly rare. And I'm sure Konami was trying to get another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles hit. Unfortunately, the gameplay doesn't match the awesome graphics and sound, but I'm sure fans of the series love it. Another fairly obscure side-scrolling shooter. This was called Rabbit Punch in the States, and there also was a remixed version for the PC Engine, which I covered in a previous video. What's kind of cool about this side-scrolling shooter, it has a pretty unique weapon system. You get close to an enemy, and yes, you can punch them, and you have limited missiles. I thought that was an interesting tactic to use in a shooter. Definitely check it out. Next is Springer. And you are controlling Springer the rabbit, where you're bouncing from cloud to cloud, getting to the sun. Strange premise. This Donkey Kong style game was ported to several classic computers as well as the 2600. Like many in the early 80s, there were several arcade wannabes trying to be the next Donkey Kong, and unfortunately this game has not aged well, nor was it really good to begin with. This was a StarPath Supercharger game for the 2600 that was available on cassette, and it's pretty cool. It's kind of like, plays a little bit like a 2D Qbert, and it's got two main screens that you hop around in and avoid various obstacles. It's got great gameplay and great animation, and I love the intermission scene where the bunny's going off to the side of the screen and comes back with a family. How sweet. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was an adaptation of the hit movie, and it's just not that good on the NES. I know there's some fans of this game. It's slower pace. You go around searching for parts of a will. It's known to be fairly bad. Now this is a rabbit game many people remember playing, and it is fantastic. It's got great gameplay, great sound, but it is very difficult. I know of a few people, this is their favorite Nintendo Entertainment System game, and rightfully so. It does many things right. With a challenging difficulty set, this one feels good to beat. It also has become a fairly desired collectible in physical form. Check this one out. Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout is an average game at best. I know there's a lot of people that bash it. I don't know if it's necessarily terrible. It's just a game that just hasn't aged well, and there are many other options to play Looney Tunes games that are so much better. This is a game back in the day that I often would overlook and not rent, seeing it available at my local video rental store. Bugs Bunny is a side-scroller puzzler in which, you're collecting carrots. And while this game isn't perfect, it definitely has an arcade feel to it. It kind of had a Goonies vibe to it, and I really did like playing this back in the day. And there's several sequels made for the portable, as well as this was ported to the Game Boy itself. I recommend it. Check it out. The Game Boy Color often gets overlooked these days, but it did have two Crazy Castle games made for it, Crazy Castle 3 and 4. And while 4 isn't too much different than the third one, I found these games to be fairly addictive. While personally I'm a bigger fan of the Tiny Toon series, there are a huge following of people that like Crazy Castle games. Now, up is Tiny Toon Adventures. This is kind of more my jam. This is a great side-scrolling platformer. It came out in a later part of the Nintendo Entertainment System's life, and you can tell it's got great graphics, good gameplay. It has many aspects of a side-scrolling platformer that you would want, and I really enjoyed playing this and never did beat it. I should go back and beat it. I have the time now, so definitely check this one out. There were several Tiny Toon Adventures side-scrolling games, and this is the second one made for Game Boy. It had large sprites, fairly challenging, but I enjoyed playing this for what I played of it so far. This is definitely one that would be great if you're a fan of the series. Now, Jackrabbit started off as a computer series, and the third one was on the Game Boy Advance, and it plays a lot like an Earthworm Jim. What is really cool about this game is that there's a multiplayer feature in which 4 people can do deathmatch style against each other. Pretty sweet. Next up is a series of Tiny Toon games that were sports centered. This one, Wacky Sports, had a lot of mini games in it. I felt it was okay, but you know, for their 16-bit game on the Super Nintendo, it had nice colorful graphics. And it is fairly uncommon to find physical form these days. The one that I played more was the Tiny Toon Acme All-Stars that included soccer and basketball. I actually found this cartoon sports game to be pretty good. This is also a 4-player game, and each Looney Tune character has its special abilities. This is definitely an overlooked title, and I think it holds up still today. A lot of fun. Long live the Sega Genesis. Another solid entry into the Tiny Toon games is Buster's Hidden Treasure for the Sega Genesis. And you know, this is just a well done game. It's not perfect. It's like many Sega Genesis games in which I give like an 8 out of 10. It has colorful graphics, good gameplay. I think it gets lost because there were so many cute platformers made for the 16-bit consoles. It's still good though. When everybody was trying to make and cash in on the Street Fighter II fighting craze, you had several games in the Clay Fighter series. C2 Judgment Clay was the introduction of Hoppy, and you know what? It has decent fighting mechanics. I'm just not a fan. Jumping Flash, an early 3D platformer for the Sony PlayStation. I know this is a cult favorite for some. The first one and even the second one is fairly easy. It's kind of interesting to go back and see 3D platformers before Super Mario 64. Check out Jumping Flash. Bloody Roar has become kind of an overlooked fighting game series, but it's pretty decent. You know, its kind of gimmick was that you could transform into half human, half beasts. The last one made was for the PlayStation 2 back in 2003. Yeah, even the Easter Bunny had its own video game, and boy is it terrible. It's just a collection of mini games. Essentially, you're putting together jigsaw puzzles with a timer, and this is just a boring game. Avoid this at all costs. Now, there was a couple cameos. Super Mario Land 2 had the bunny suit. One of the best shooters on the NES library, Gunnak. While Little Goofy has lots of robotic bunnies. There's, of course, Peppy Hare and Star Fox. Then you have Rayman Raving Rabbids, the whole series, which is fantastic. The first one appeared on Nintendo Wii. There's a multitude of mini games on the first game, which is still one of the better ones. Totally worth playing, especially as a party game. Some of the better Wii titles. Last and definitely not least is Zipper T. Bunny, commonly known as Zipper. And he is of Animal Crossing fame. He's a special holiday character found during Bunny Day. So there are many other video games that I wanted to share in this video. Monster Rancher 2 is a game that I played quite a bit. I really love that Monster Rancher in particular, and raising bunnies in it was something that I did quite a bit. Had a lot of fun. There's so many variations of animals and monsters to raise in that game. What are your favorite games with bunnies? of the ones I showed today? Comment below, as I would love to hear from you. Are there other games that you remember that have bunnies in them that weren't shown? I know there's a ton out there. I didn't show them all. So thank you so much for the ongoing support. I hope this video uplifts your spirits. Trying to keep it positive. Stay healthy and be safe. This is the Immortal John Hancock. You take care.